We have also a resource person from the private sector who can uh, enlighten us on the proposal. Mr. David Leechiu, who's also was part of the previous hearings that we conducted, and I thank Mr. Leechiu for his generosity in coming here and sharing his time with us. So, any comments, Mr. Leechiu? I've read your report, and in the news, you also made some comments on the overall property sector and the ban in Pogos. Well, before, no, I think during the initial phase of Pogos, the ban in Pogos definitely will have direct effect on the property market. I remember at one time during the heydays of Pogos, Pogos occupy about 45%, no, more or less, of the commercial leasable space in our country. But we also saw a different trend after the pandemic. They were building their own facilities already. No, as case in point will be in Porac and in Bamban. So we would like to be enlightened by your expert opinion on how a ban in Pogos will affect the property market. Will it still affect the property market considering that they are shifting in terms of strategy? And any thoughts on the proposals to ban Pogos and also online gaming? No?
Well, thank you very much for having me over, Senator Gatchalian, and good afternoon to everyone. So, first of all, I'd like to say that it's lamentable that we have all these problems, all these social problems that is really causing us to totally ban this industry. I for one think that we are doing so at the expense of the ones that are complying with the law, because not all the Pogos are defiant or in violation. But if it is the best for the country, then I suppose the only appeal is to be able to do that in a phased manner. Not so much for the property sector anymore, but mainly for the people who will lose their jobs. You mentioned drivers and maids. Well, those drivers and maids are paid 3 to 4 times what the local will pay, and for those people, they are becoming more prosperous than they were prior to the Pogo sector. When I first went to Cagayan Export Processing Zone, where it was a hub for Pogos many years ago, many of the locals there said that prior to the Pogos' arrival there, they just fed off the sea. And so if the weather was bad, they starved. And because of the Pogo, there was a level of economic activity that made them quite able to meet their needs. And I suppose if we look at what happened in Porac and what happened in Banban, very small communities where they became the largest economic driver in those areas. And the local community might have protected them until they were discovered, primarily because they were such a big economic contributor to those locations where there are very few investors. Again, it is unfortunate that we seem to attract a number of these mafia gangster-related operations, but I want to stress that not all of them are like that. At least the ones that we have dealt business and signed deals in Makati or Pasay comply with the very strict regulations of the government. I suppose we attract all these gangsters, but as what some in the panel have said also, is that we need a sense of reflection on why we allow these gangsters to operate, and we cooperate with these gangsters. So that is probably a point of reflection for us as a community, and what drives us to do these things. I mean, it's not just this industry. If you look at sexual abuse amongst minors, we have to ask ourselves, why do parents sell their children? What drives them to those motives and to those actions? It's a big social issue. It's a big philosophical and education issue. I did notice from the gentleman from the Department of Finance that one of the costs is 500 billion pesos going to enforcement of the law, and perhaps that these issues that we're going through could be partially addressed by doubling or tripling or quadrupling of that budget, because the revenues that we're generating from this industry alone can justify that multiple increase in law enforcement, whether that comes in terms of better technology or better manpower or better training of manpower. That's beyond me. As far as the property market is concerned, we think the industry still occupies 1 million square meters of office space, and this is the ones that we have tracked legitimately. The ones that happened in Bamban and Porac were totally out of our radar. But there is a benefit for the ones that are complying, and that benefit is quite significant. It's not just about the rent they pay. It's about the confidence that they instill in entrepreneurs to take risk and build more buildings. Building those buildings isn't just a matter of taking a loan. It's about building communities all throughout the country. That is one of the things that we are going to lose if we have a total and sudden ban of this market, because we're not just going to hurt the illegal operators, but we're also going to hurt the legitimate ones that are gainfully employing a lot of people. So yes, I do abhor the social ills that are attached to this industry, but that is primarily driven by people who shouldn't be here in the first place. And I think a big portion of that solution is about better enforcement that may or may not be solved by more funding. I don't know. I also would like to propose that the Pogo sector, or the BPO segment of the Pogo sector, isn't just about China. Australia, Japan, US, Canada are very big gambling markets, and we can benefit from that by trying to entice them to set operations here, and hopefully they will be more compliant than their Chinese counterparts. There is a very big market that we will forgo, that will bring investment here, legitimate investment, if we just shut them down altogether. Lastly, I think the benefit of if we do proceed with banning the Pogo sector and the online gaming sector, then a staggered process will make it easier for developers to find replacement tenants, because there's 18 million square meters of office space today all over the country. 18 million. The Pogo sector only occupies 1 million square meters. At the height, it was probably 2 million square meters. At the most that they occupy is about 1 million square meters. Maybe the stragglers and the illegals and the big Pogo hubs like Porac are few and far between. I don't think there are the majority of the cases. I defended the Pogo sector quite vocally in the last 3 years, primarily because of the economic benefits that we could not lose. In my opinion, we could not afford to lose during the pandemic season and the process as we exited from the pandemic. Now, 4 years after, with less office space overhang, there's still 3 million square meters of office space vacant all over the Philippines. If we remove this altogether, that will add another million at a time when the property market is trying to recover from this crisis. Why is this so important? Because the Philippines is in a very, very enviable position as far as the office market is concerned all over the world. Today, the office market in the US, the office market in Canada, the office market in Western Europe, the office market in Australia are all being destroyed right now because of the effects of the pandemic, work from home, high interest rates, high inflation. They're being destroyed at the moment, and that's producing turbulence in the banking sector. The Philippines is one of the few countries where demand is still growing net positive. And we have to be quite thankful for that. And if we are going to shut down a large portion of this demand driver, then I would encourage that we do so in a processed manner and not just abruptly. I don't think that shutting this sector will dramatically and negatively impact the property sector, and I don't think that will lead to anything larger that will impact the banking sector, unlike what we're seeing in most parts of the world. But we also have to appreciate what we actually are enjoying from this segment of the market. And again, I say that as I abhor the social ills that a number of illegal operators are doing. And again, I would rather that we try to find a balance there. But I do agree that if we cannot seem to regulate and enforce the law properly, then I guess the easy way out is just to ban the industry altogether. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Mr. Leechiu, you mentioned earlier there's still existing Pogo companies leasing space of about 1 million square meters. Is that correct?
More or less, sir. We think it's at least 700,000 square meters, so as much as 1 million.
In your observation, are they still expanding? Meaning, are they still leasing spaces?
Yes.
Are they contracting?
A number have contracted. Some are expanding. Very, very few are expanding. And so I think net the industry is still shrinking.
Okay. And then the space that they left, this Pogo companies or the overall industry is shrinking. So they free up space. What industries are taking up those spaces?
Because of the contraction of the Pogo sector, the rents have fallen quite dramatically in the Bay Area, as an example, in this area, in where we are. And that's allowed government agencies to upgrade their offices. So the Department of Foreign Affairs, the Department of Trade and Industry, the NBI have all just taken brand new leases recently at quite preferential rates because of the cheaper rents, and it's allowed them to upgrade their offices to much better facilities. The other thing is some of these spaces are taken up by the BPO sector. The BPO sector still is the largest demand driver for office space.
Do you think that prices have already fallen to a much more reasonable and acceptable level? Because during the past, especially in 2019, complaints were, I'm sure you've heard this, but there are a lot of complaints that because of the rapid expansion of Pogos, they took up a lot of the office spaces as well as residential spaces at a premium, because they can offer much higher rates, both for residential and for commercial. And it eventually pushed out small businesses, as well as even legitimate big size businesses, or businesses that who have been there for a long time. So I was looking at some of the reports, including your reports, that lease rates have fallen because a lot of them have left or are not expanding, but fallen to a point that it's reasonable for corporations to take up the space, and also, like you said, government agencies to expand their offices. So my question is, has it reached the equilibrium or has it reached the reasonable level in terms of lease prices?
I think that it's always a balance between investors that are happy with rent and tenants that are willing to pay rent. I think we're beyond the point where it is reasonable for developers to keep building. So the rents fell because of two reasons. One is that the POGOs contracted dramatically during 2020 to today. But the second reason is the cheap money from all the QE that governments did all around the world brought interest rates to record lows, and that propelled developers of all kinds to develop office space, way too much office space for us to absorb. We predicted that to happen in 2016, but the POGO sector came in to sweep up all that vacant space. And so the process of this oversupply that we're going through right now actually was delayed by 4 years because of the POGO sector. So that's been a tremendous benefit, and that's why now that things are more stable, so we don't have 4 million, we now have only 3 million square meters of vacant office space. We're hoping that the demand from both the traditional businesses and the BPO sector will continue to absorb spaces. So rents should be a lot lower than they are today, but they are not because the developers continue to be resilient. If a crisis knocks down that resiliency, then you will see rents crash through the floor. But already, because of the low rents, it does not make it viable for developers to build more space. The confidence level of developers today is very low. That's why you see the pipeline of office and construction in general to drop in the next 5-7 years. So if we are trying to estimate the impact of this industry, we have to quantify and factor the amount of space that could have been built in many undeveloped areas but are not being built because of the low confidence levels of developers. And as a summary, that confidence level is because they are afraid about the demand, the uncertainty in demand, and second, the low rents because of the high vacancies. So these are the two things that we have to factor. Today, as rents are low, we probably have 3 to 5 years worth of vacant office space today. So it will take 3 to 5 years to achieve equilibrium in the office sector. Some districts faster than others. But what this will actually do is it will impair development of many places outside of Manila. And that's something that we can't quantify. Money that could have spilled over to the provinces are not going to happen.
In case, I know that there's excess capacity right now. You mentioned about 3 million. In case, assuming we push through with the proposal to ban POGOs, and so the effect there is 1 million of space will now be freed up. Which industry can take up that 1 million plus 3 million? And I'm assuming that prices will further go down, obviously. No?
Yes, sir.
But from your experience, what industries can replace those freed up spaces? And I say this because I noticed that Pogos also occupy a unique office space. No, I would assume. No, they're not the typical office space. Probably they're one like a BPO. No, they're one big floor, and it's probably a IT oriented building. So I say that because I want to understand also what type of industries can replace those office spaces that they will be leaving.
At this moment, sir, I only see the traditional offices and BPOs taking it up, and if that's the case, then it will still take 3 to 5 years, 3 years at best, 5 years to achieve equilibrium. Although I think by 2028, 2027,